Welcome to the Next 7 Days podcast series, where we break the season down into week-by-week segments, bringing on a new guest hunter every week that specializes in their time frame. We're starting off at September 14th and running to November 30th, covering every segment of the season, starting with early season into the October lull, into the rut and the secondary rut. So I hope you're ready to hunt the next 7 days with Clint Campbell. Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, coming in your ear holes with yet another episode of the next 7 days. This week we're talking with Clint Campbell all about one of my favorite time of the year. And guys, this cold snap that we're going to have during this time frame is going to be insane. Get excited, get jacked up. It's time to kill target bucks. The scrapes are going to be on fire. They're going to be on the food. It is going to be phenomenal. I cannot believe, every time I look at the extended forecast, I'm like, it's going to change, it's going to change. And it's getting colder and colder for more days. I'm like shaking in my pants over here with excitement, guys. It's time to rip right now, early in the year, and we don't get this very often. So let's get in this. People that make this possible, we're going to get right into the show. Starting off with Exodus Outdoor Gear. Guys, like I mentioned last week, I had a Lift 2 that expired on me finally after almost 5 years. And they sent that sucker on the 3-day first-class shipping to me, guys. And I had that sucker. It's already back out getting pictures. So I was down very little time. So that 5-year warranty is absolutely no joke when it comes to these Exodus trail cameras. If you don't know about that 5-year warranty, if you buy any Exodus trail camera, you get a 5-year no BS warranty. That's 5 years. You break it, it breaks. The weather takes it. You can literally hang it out there for 4 years and 364 days. It craps out on you. You are guaranteed another trail cam. Absolutely best warranty in the industry, hands down. And they also came out with the new Exodus MMT arrows. So if you guys are in the market for a new arrow, definitely check them out. My quiver is loaded up with them, and they are shooting. I'm shooting the best I've ever shot. So we'll see how that equals out when I have a target bucks in my sights. But I can't wait to paint one of those things red, because I keep seeing pictures of They made a center wrap white, so you can really see where you shot the animal and give you some good blood on the center of the arrow in case you don't get that pass through and it doesn't get to the fletching, so you can see what color of blood you got. They made it right there on the center of the wrap, which is really cool little feature that they added to the arrow. Make sure and follow all of Exodus' socials: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And if you're looking for any arrows or trail cameras, stealth cams, do not look any further than Exodus Outdoor Gear. Getting into the next one is Afflictor broadheads. I'm shooting the Hybrid EXT, the 1.5-inch hybrid mechanical to start. And then I also have been shooting the K2 fixed, and they are both flying extremely well. I've always been a mechanical guy, just getting a little more of that cutting diameter. But after watching some of Afflictor's YouTube, I've learned that sometimes that is not as beneficial as a guy would think. So if you guys have not checked out Afflictor's YouTube, there's a lot of good content on there about tracking your deer after you're shooting, setting up your arrows, broadhead choice. There's a lot of good content on that YouTube page, and the production's done very well, so shout out to them. But that's what I'll be rocking in my quiver this year. And check them out at Afflictor broadheads. Moving on to 330archery.com. If you guys are in the market for a new bowstring, you got your bow out, and you're like, oh crap, it's time to go, and my bow ain't ready, he can get you the fastest turnaround in the game there at 330archery.com. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoy this episode. Like I said, get excited for this cold front coming up. Go out there. Try to make a move on those target bucks. This is going to be a cold front to remember for October. I'm extremely excited. I got my eyes on a couple bucks that I'm hopefully they've been edging daylight, so hopefully this is what it takes to get them there. I'm definitely going to try to make a move on them and not wait. They've been edging in the morning and edging in the evening, and I know where they're bedding in between there. So I'm just going to get in there as tight as I can and try to make a move. So hopefully you guys do the same. A lot of messages coming in. Let me know what you guys got going on this season. Keep them coming. I love trotting deer, guys. I don't like missing out on anything you guys got going on. So keep them coming. If you do connect, let me know. All right, guys, let's get into the show.
All right, we got Clint Campbell on tonight, and we're talking about October 12th through the 19th. It's game time in the Whitetail Woods. We're in season here. How are you doing tonight, Clint?
I'm good, brother. How you doing, man? Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, doing good, man. Appreciate you coming on again and chit-chatting with me. Like we talked about the series, I wanted to have people on that I trust the knowledge. I respect them as hunters. I respect them as human beings, and that are damn good people and hunters in general. And when we were making the list, you came up to mind. I know we talked about having you on a show like maybe 4 or 5 months ago and finally connected. When you said that you wanted to cover this week, I was like, perfect. Cause this is kind of a tough week for a lot of guys. Like this is one of my favorite weeks, but I was laying out the weeks for you that we had. And I was like, when you picked this one, I'm like, that's perfect. Cause not a lot of people are going to pick this week here. So, to start off, just do a brief introduction of who you are and what you got going on.
Yeah. Clint Campbell. I run the Truth from the Stand deer hunting podcast. And I was born in Pennsylvania, spent some time in Florida as a musician for a bunch of years, and then moved back to PA. It's been probably 11 years ago. Ate up with bow hunting. I don't really hunt with much else. I will, tote a gun around during turkey season, but for the most part, it's bow in hand. I like DIY stuff, like hard stuff. I hunt like 99% is public land here in PA. I do a lot of travel hunting. So every year I'm usually, going somewhere. This year it'll be here in a couple weeks. I'll be in Kansas again, trying to redeem myself from last year. But the reason why I picked this week is because a lot of times my travel hunts are happening, usually in November, whether it's Kansas, Ohio, Iowa, Missouri, wherever I'm headed. So I have to try to figure out how to get it done, in in October if I'm going to do it in PA for the most part. And so I made a concerted effort probably the past 3 years to try to figure out how can I dial in, more on October dates. And are there any things, tricks, tips, tactics, or anything like that I could use to try to do that? And in the past 2 years, I've really started seeing some things kind of come together that have put me in the right spots at the right time. Should have released a couple arrows last year, but the gods said no. The deer gods said no, it wasn't going to happen. But the method is proving true and is holding true over the course of the past couple of years. I've been kind of using this approach.
Nice. Go over, if you could have your absolute perfect primo setup, what would that be during this time frame?
Man, it would be October 15th through the 17th probably would be the dates, like the window. And I give you that range because it would be dependent on what the wind would be doing. I'll pick a specific spot, for this particular spot that I'm thinking of. I want something that is going to be anything out of the north, essentially, I can get away with. So I can get away with the northwest. I can get away with the northeast. I'm going to want it to be temperature wise. I like those like 50-ish degrees, like doesn't get higher than 59. Cause it's still like, if you got like a 5 to 10 mile per hour wind, you got a little nip, in the air, but it's not miserably cold. So I can still, dress pretty light and, be mobile if I need to be. I would like to have like a 10 mile per hour wind. That way I can get a little bit of wind cover, keep my wind consistent for the day. Don't have to necessarily worry about it swirling. Trying to think what else, man. I want it to be a little bit overcast too. A little spit and rain doesn't bother me. I don't want like a steady drizzle all day. I mean, I'll tolerate it if I have to, but if it's just gray and kind of overcast where I can see really well and I'm not getting glare from the sun and stuff like that, just a nice kind of, your classic dreary, depressing October day is what I want. I want a morning hunt if I can have it, is what I'd prefer. Preferably on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday where I got to kind of piece out of work, you know what I mean? Where I take a day off, or maybe I just take the morning or whatever. but I definitely want it to be in the middle of the week if I can have it.
Nice. Yeah, that's perfect, man. There's something about those rainstorms where it's like, I believe that those deer go and freshen those scrapes up. I know you're a scrape hunter, so I don't know how many people we've had on a podcast right after a little drizzle. I killed my buck right after a little drizzle on the 27th October last year. They like to get up. I don't know if they're wet. They like to get dried off or what it is, but those nasty overcast little rain days, man, those are like magical during that time period.
Right.
Like you said, a little breeze is always nice if you're sneaking in on something. And a little breeze plays huge in the temperature when it's around that, a 50-degree day with no wind or a 50-degree with a 10, 15 mile an hour wind is way different feeling outside. And I always like a 10, I'm loud, dude. I try to be sneaky, but man, every time I'm really trying to do good, I'm slow. And then I'm like, man, I'm going too slow. And then I'll make a mistake and drop something out of the stand or something. So it's always nice to have a little bit of noise to cover you up. So in your mind, during this October 12th through the 19th, what are the bucks doing this time of year?
Yeah. So for me, man, I've run a lot of trail cameras, and in the past couple of years, I've really kind of focused in on this particular, range of dates this particular week, because my buddy Greg Litzinger kind of turned me on to this, where, somewhere between, the 16th, the 18th, and it might be a little bit earlier depending on, where you're at, or maybe you have a hot doe in the area that's going to come in early that might be getting things fired up a little bit, in advance. But the mature deer for the area, or the dominant deer for the area, oftentimes will make his first mistake in that time frame. Whether that's because he's coming back to bed a little bit late and he's going to check a couple of scrapes on his way back to bed. You still got to kind of be in close to their beds. You have to be on top of them. I'm not the greatest bed hunter, and this is kind of the way I get away with hunting beds, is I get in and around like the scrapes that are adjacent to their beds. That way I can kind of still play that core area bedroom movement. They're moving a lot more than we give them credit for. They're just not moving far distances from the areas that they feel really safe. So at that time, in my opinion, they're starting to kind of get their house in order, especially whenever you hit that like 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th time frame. They're going to start just kind of checking and getting an inventory of what the hell's going on in my core area for the fall. They're changing food sources to a degree. So if you have a bedding area that you kind of know of, that might have a food source in nearby, whether it's an oak that's drop in, or whatever the case might be, those are always kind of obviously great areas. And then anything, if you find, I guess, a really good pocket of doe bedding where bucks are going to be bedding not far off. This is one thing that I kind of learned from John Eberhart, and I think it plays into one of the spots, that spot that I gave you kind of all the parameters for, the wind and everything that I wanted, is that a lot of times some of these more mature deer, they will bed up not far from scrapes, knowing that does are going to be coming through, checking those on their way back to kind of doe bedding. So as opposed to chasing and trying to search all over the place and kind of check does, they kind of sit there and wait and check does as they come by. So they're the older deer in the woods, and they're kind of playing the game smart, right? It's like, well, why go chase, or why go seek and expose myself when I can lay in and around all this bedding cover around a primary scrape that I know the majority of the does that live in this bedding area that's adjacent to it are going to ultimately have to walk by and hit probably at some point, right? And so I think a little bit of that's starting to play in, but by and large, what I've seen the past 2 years watching, I guess 3 years in the one spot watching, is that time frame, dominant deer in the area will make his first mistake in daylight in that window, in that couple day window. You just got to make sure you time it with the right wind conditions and the right weather conditions to be there.
Yeah, those interior doe bedding scrapes that are real close to doe bedding, but buck bedding as well. That's how I killed my buck last year on the 27th. Just, there's something about those, like you said, they bed close to them. And they like to J hook into them, and like you said, why search all over that doe bedding? We can just go hit this scrape and say, oh yeah, this doe's ready. Like, she's getting real close. I probably need to hang out here, or should I move on?
Yeah. So the other thing with this particular spot, and I know we're talking about this week in particular, so that's kind of like, I guess, the thing that I've seen and the advice that I would give for that particular week. But when you find areas like that start to kind of heat up around these kind of timeframes and stuff like that, do your off-season due diligence as well. Because what I ended up finding out about this spot was not only was that happening, but there was always like a little bit of like a ramp up of deer activity that would kind of happen for like 2 or 3 days before that big deer would show up. You know what I mean? And then what I watched this year, and I was because my hypothesis was that there was a doe that came in early in there, and I just never saw it because I couldn't see the fawn early enough to backdate it. Well, this year I actually saw the fawn drop. She was probably 2 days old whenever I saw her on camera, because I had a cell camera in there, and I was actually able to backdate it to where that doe had to have been bred somewhere between like the 15th and 17th, which would time up for whenever I always see that first big deer show up. You know what I mean? So it's like when you see that flurry of activity, don't just accept it for what it is. If you can figure out the why of it, man, then you can really time it up every year and have some really great encounters.
I agree. My kids are in the studio now, on the weight bench over there.
Getting swole.
Guys, you got to be quiet over there. My kid's hitting some squats with the 25s right now.
There you go.
Yeah, I agree, man. People think November is the only time that the rut happens, but some of these does, they get the stone right a little bit early. And I feel like you said, those bucks are so keen on that. They know, and they're going to check those scrapes whenever possible. And I feel like this week is, from now to the 30th of October, this is the scrape mecca, dude. If you're on a good scrape, you need to be in that area. You need to have a cam on that thing. You need to be watching it, because he's going to be checking that thing. More than likely, like you said, making those first mistakes during daylight.
Well, the other thing you have going in your favor here too is that a lot of people give up on this week.
Yeah,
because they're gearing up, or they're gearing up for the next week, the week after, or 2 weeks after. You know what I mean? So you typically get away. That's why I was saying, you know, I was giving you kind of my parameters. I was like a morning in the middle of the week, because there's not going to be anybody in the woods that time of year in the morning in the middle of the week. No one's taking time from work to hunt that week. You know what I mean? So
there's nobody out there.
Yeah, especially if you're hunting pressured areas, you know, that's key.
Yeah. All right, let's do the would you rathers. Hey guys, here, get out of here. Let's knock you out with these would you rathers. Would you rather kill a local buck that you've been after a few years, or a random trip giant? Man. I know you go on a lot of trips, so I was like, man, this would be a good one to throw at him. A random trip giant's got to feel good, because you made it happen quick there, you know?
Yeah, I prefer the random trip giant, to be honest. Just because you're under time constraints. You know what I mean? It's like, if I go somewhere like Iowa, I'll take like 2 weeks off and I'll go do that. Last year in Kansas, I took 2 weeks. This year in Kansas, I'm only taking a week because I know a little bit more about the area, because I'm going back to the same spot, or same, you know, public that I was hunting last year. But yeah, I would say a random giant would feel pretty good, just based on very limited knowledge of the area and having to get it done under a time crunch.
Yeah, it's like Chad buck last year, dude. When I seen that, I was like, golly, this hog coming out, and just to go out there, like, your expectations are like, man, I'm just going to have a good time, maybe get it done. But to drag out a deer like that, like, I know you were there with them, and I was like, I seen it. I was like, damn, like that's a trip, dude. Like, that's a trip they'll remember forever. And just to go in there off sign and kill a deer like that, it's just super badass to me.
That and you just don't know what's around every corner too, man. That's the kind of exciting part. It's like anything could pop out. I mean, when I was in Iowa, I ended up hunting the CRP and glassed the CRP. I was trying to make sure I wasn't going to bump a deer out of this draw, because I was like, man, that draw looks like a deer would be bedded there. And sure enough, I just didn't see it while I was glassing, and I ended up bumping a 180-inch deer out of that draw. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you know, that random, like, I had no clue that deer was there. You know what I mean? Just doing that kind of stuff and walking up on, you know, a big deer, you know, to kill one like that would just be unreal.
So going along with our next question, you just said 180. Would you rather miss a shot on a 180 or miss the next two Pope and Young bucks back to back?
I'd rather miss the 180.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I'm like, man, that'd be devastating. But to have two misses back to back, that would be so heartbreaking.
It would be heartbreaking, and I'd rather miss the 180, because that means I was within bow range of a world class.
Yeah. You're like, okay, I did the right thing. I just couldn't, you know, really seal the deal here. But to miss two bucks back to back would be tragic. So All right,
And I'm
next
also
one,
going
all
with the
day.
I'm also going with the odds. The chances of me actually seeing a 180 are pretty low.
Yeah. Where you're at, it's
Myself.
like, you never know. So, all right, all day sit, no food, or all day sit with wet feet.
All day sit with wet feet. I would rather do that.
Man, I'd go no food, man. I'd try to tough it out. I got the most weeniest feet in the game out here, bro.
Dude, there's so many places around here that I hunt that have water that I have a hard time finding hunts where I don't have wet feet. You know what I mean? So I'm already dealing with it. So I'm
You're
like,
already
it's gonna
dealing with
happen
it, so
anyway.
like,
So at least I
I'm
have
gonna have
food.
some nice food at least in there to keep me in there. So,
Exactly.
all right, last one. I made this specifically for you because I know you travel at 4 flat tires for the whole entire season, or you ran out of gas at the most worst time possible. Which one you choosing?
I would take, you said 4 flat tires?
4 flat tires for the whole whitetail season, or me and my buddy have a joke that if I don't have two, me and him don't have 2 flat tires apiece during the year, we're not killing a buck. I've already had 2 this year. I already knocked them out. So I'm on the up and up. But yeah, 4 flat tires for the whole entire whitetail season on your trips where you ran out of gas in the worst spot ever.
I'll run out of gas.
Yeah, flat tires. It's such a. Like my work car. I got that down to a science. It's about 18 minutes. I could change a flat tire.
See, the part that I'm worried about is my travel trailer blowing one of those, and it just sending me rolling because it blows out and flips.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I'm gonna ask this question. He pulling that trailer everywhere. I'm like, if it was 2 flat tires, you'd be like, maybe, but 4, that's the edge where you're like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, if it was 1, I would definitely go with the flat tire, because on my truck I have, a regular size real, tire to replace it with, so I wouldn't be so worried. But more than 1, if it's on the trailer, I'm like, I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, you got to carry like 2 donuts just to really get you in a tight spot. So
yeah.
All right, well, getting back into the content, you already kind of mentioned this, but I know a lot of people over the years of the content that's been created don't hunt mornings this time of year, which I think is completely wrong. So are you hunting mornings this time of year?
Yeah, I hunt a lot of mornings this time of year, actually. Probably not saying I don't do an evening hunt, because I certainly will. But if there's a real good, switch in wind direction or change in weather or something like that, man, I'm trying to prioritize the morning to get out. Reason being, again, it's like PA, high pressure state. Everyone's going to hunt evenings, especially on a good weather day. If you get like a good wind, for a certain area, or you get like a good temp drop or whatever, a lot of people are going to be going out. But there's not a lot of people going out in the mornings this time of year. So I prioritize mornings a lot of times, especially whenever I get the right wind. And my cameras have been telling me that, just monitoring cameras, it's like I'm seeing more activity in the mornings than I am in the evenings in these areas. And I think for me personally, I think everyone has to kind of think about it where they actually hunt, because I don't think that that's the right answer necessarily for everybody. But I think people who hunt in areas that get a lot of pressure, I think that is a better than usual option, and is often overlooked, because, deer want the normal things to survive. And they need certain things to kind of behave consistently, right? And one of the things that they don't want is human pressure, right? And you can't control that necessarily, but you can control when you go in and understand when people are going to be there and when they aren't going to be there. So by eliminating that one variable, you can now make a better game plan and actually play the intel you actually have on a particular deer, or, for a particular area.
I agree with you. Those mornings, nobody likes going out in the dark and hanging a stand and making the moves and walking through the woods. I see probably 3 times the just parking lot pressure in the evenings on my public piece than the mornings. A lot of it's because you got to get those so early in the morning that to get to the spots that you want to get to, people they're into it. Like you said, they're into it. Maybe the first week of October, they're fired up. They're ready to go. This week, they're not doing it. They're like, I got to save myself for when it gets good, blah, blah, blah. And those mornings are wide open, man. You might be the only guy there all morning or all day during this time period. But I think mornings are, before podcasts really came out, I remember like when the Outdoor Channel and everything really came out, mornings were like the demon to big white. Don't hunt mornings because you're just educating deer. Don't hunt mornings. I don't believe hunting mornings in a bedding area is the smartest thing, but hunting mornings on a scrape or hunting mornings on a transition zone or something, that is awesome this time of year.
Yeah, I was just going to say, man, like not all things are created equal. You know what I mean? It's like, I think, again, I don't have a lot of primary food sources that I'm kind of working with. So there's no like major ag that's like driving the to and from kind of movement necessarily. Right. So I agree. Like if you're in an area that is primarily agriculture, it's like, I'm not hunting mornings either. You know what I mean? Because like, where are you going to set up? You know what I mean? Where's your setup spots, But for me, because it's all for the most part, big woods and timber and stuff like that, I'm not hunting a bed to food or like a food kind of pattern or movement, so to speak, and I'm definitely not hunting like in over a bed. I'm hunting close to it, but I'm hunting those attractive areas that are in between, and that's why for me mornings, and that, again, just to reiterate, prioritizing mornings, but prioritizing especially mornings in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
Saturday you still get, in a heavily pressured area with like Michigans and stuff like that with like a bunch of hunting harriers. Like there's plenty of guys that are hardcore. They'll go out in the morning on a Saturday, but again, they're not taking October 16th off in the to hunt the morning. They're going to prioritize taking their day off for November 1st to the 7th, or the 31st of October or whatever, so if you can do it in the middle of the week in the morning, like that to me is like, it's primo time. Cause you got to think about it too. Like the deer get that relaxed period as well, where it's like, they're not getting as much pressure. Well, what are you going to do? And you're going to move around a little bit more. You're going to feel a little bit more free. You might take your time getting back to bed. You know what I mean? So you have to think about all this. It's like deer don't act too terribly different than we do. You know what I mean? Like to a degree, it's like when it's cold, windy and wet, they want to get up and move. Why? We'd want to get up and move. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to just sit there and be cold and wet, so a lot of the stuff that they do, we think there's like this deep secret to why they do it, when the reality is they're just reacting to the elements just as we would, so but yeah, that would be, mornings, middle of the week for me is primo.
All right. So during this time period, how much are you focusing on scouting and a new sign?
Yeah, I mean, this time period, I'm probably focusing more on my historical, because I hunt this week particularly in very specific spots based on years worth of data that I've had from encounters to trail camera data. So primarily the plan is to kind of use that intel that I've gathered over years and putting that to work. Now, if for some weird reason all the spots are drying up and I'm just not getting the activity that I want to see, or if I'm not having encounters, then I put boots on the ground and I'm not afraid to kind of make a move and try to figure out like, where do they go? Like what changed? Why aren't they where they're supposed to be? And so I would say the early part of this week, scouting. When I get to like the middle part of this week and later, I'm hunting either what I've scouted and know, or using the annual data that I've had for the past several years.
I feel like I'm the same way. I'm using that data this time of year from the past pretty much solely, or I'm remembering, not just trail cam data. I'm remembering something I seen late season where there was some sign that popped up, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm gonna go back in there. If I am scouting, I'm going back into hunt an area, scouting on the way. Okay, bam, here's a new, really good, fresh looking scrape. Maybe I'll set up there. Maybe I'll press deeper. That's the kind of scouting I'm doing. But it's weird when you have those dates that shit just happens. Like on we have a 40-acre piece of private. If a guy could get in there and hunt October 1st to October 5th every year without busting deer, he would kill a buck. I guaranteed. There's bucks on cam 1 or 2 days a year during those first 5 days of season in the evening on our fall food plot every year. And then after that, it shuts off. We haven't been able to nail that date, but last year I went in there on like the 3rd and they were there the 4th. Like it was just that one, I was 1 day off, and it's just, it's not like it's a deer we have on cam, but it's not like the same deer or something. There's just a deer that goes and hits the scrape on the food source within those 5 days. So you bet your ass within those 5 days, I'm going to pick a day or two that I'm going to try to get in there in the evening and hunt that. But during that spot, there's just no way you could hunt it 5 days straight and not burger the deer up. But it's just one of those past history areas where that during this time period, that's going to happen. And it's consistently happened like the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely using my historical data by and large. Like I said, the beginning of that week, I, will be doing some scouting depending also, on work schedule and things like that. Cause I'm a normal dude, but that's why I use the annual data. Like I'm strategically trying to prioritize the days where I'm going to have the best opportunity based on previous history. Now, the one thing I will do, if it's a boat access area, then I'm probably not doing a lot of scouting because those areas I'm usually like in and right in a tree with like very little ground scent being laid down. If it's somewhere where I need to walk and I can kind of make a loop with good access and maybe check some sign that I found in the postseason and see like, hey, when, and I don't know when that sign got laid down, but I can make a walk through that week and be like, okay, does this sign get laid down October before now? So, between like October 1st to like the 12th or whatever day it happens to be that I walk through. That way I can kind of qualify that. And then maybe it's something I can use again, for the next year. So I will do that kind of stuff by and large. Those are dates that I kind of have committed to. These are the best opportunities for some of these areas. And I need to just be at those spots whenever the weather and the wind conditions, give me the opportunity to.
all right, last question here. What if there's one thing you could say to someone to make them more successful this time of the year, what do you think it would be?
Man, I would say it may not help you this year, but if you find places that if you have a hunch about it being consistent in and around a scrape or in and around a food source or whatever, hang a camera, let it lay there and work for a year until, for like 2 years and hunt it and kind of journal your encounters. That's one of the biggest things for me was starting to journal. Like while I'm in a tree, if there's nothing happening, I'll just punch into my app some notes about what I saw that day, especially if I had an encounter. And then I go back and I start corroborating that with either other journal dates from past years or trail camera data and start to kind of marry those things up. But I would say, wherever your best kind of primary scrape is, I wouldn't be afraid to hunt that this week, especially if it's in and around doe bedding. And this time of year, you're chasing the changing food sources. So those two things. But for me, it's like I live and die by a scrape. That's kind of my game.
I love scrape hunt, man, especially if you're an optimistic hunter, like you're just out there trying to kill a nice buck. Scrape hunting's so good this time of year, all the way up to, like I said, that late October.
Right.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I hope you're already bucked out this year already, and you're on a trip somewhere, absolutely having a badass time. Hope Kansas goes well for you, and I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me.
All right.
Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Next 7 Days series. And like I said, this is going to be a banger this week. Get out there, do what you can to get in the woods, and have some damn fun hunting some bucks because they're going to be moving. They're going to be hitting scrapes. They're going to be doing all the stuff that he talked about in this episode. Like we said, if there's a cold front, everything's, twice as good, 3 times as good this time of year. So don't miss it. Like always, love you guys. Appreciate you tuning in all the way to the end. The numbers have been insane. I cannot thank you guys enough. If you want to do a little something extra sweet for me that'll give you that good karma to shoot that giant buck this week, go ahead and leave me a review wherever you're at, iTunes, Spotify. Leave me a review, what you think of the podcast. Jot down some notes there and let me know what you think. Reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere. My personal Instagram's Cody Jenkins WLP if you don't want to reach out to the page there. But I'm here for you guys. Any questions, comments that you got about the deer that you got, anything going on, love chit-chatting. And always try to do the right thing. Try to leave a legacy. And Whitetail Legacy is out.